everyone, welcome back to my channel. Tonight, I'm taking you on one of the most incredible train journeys in the world, the Qinghai-Tibet Railway from Xining to Lhasa. This isn't just any train ride, it's a 22-hour adventure across the roof of the world, reaching altitudes higher than 5,000 meters. So, grab a snack, get comfy, and let's roll. The total distance covered in this journey will be 1,972 kilometers, which will take 21 hours. Last night, a light drizzle fell, and it was completely pitch black outside, leaving me with nothing to film on my camera. I barely slept a wink, buzzing with excitement about seeing the roof of the world for the first time when morning finally came. It was close to midnight in Xining, and the train departed right on time. Xining sits at about 2,200 meters above sea level, so we were already pretty high up. But trust me, we're going way higher. And the journey to Lhasa is officially underway. We are about 120 kilometers away from our first major stop in Golmud. Our train was supposed to arrive already in Golmud, but the train was stationary at an unknown location for a couple of hours during our sleep. Shortly after leaving Golmud, the train starts climbing steadily, and within about 1.5 hours, you will catch sight of Yanshiping, a towering, snow-capped mountain in the Kunlun range that rises over 6,000 meters. Its glistening summit is a dramatic introduction to the high-altitude wilderness ahead. As the elevation increases, the air thins, but the train is equipped with an oxygen supply system that kicks in to help passengers adjust, pumping oxygen into the cabins and offering individual outlets if needed. This is a welcome feature as the train approaches heights exceeding 4,000 meters within just a few hours. The landscape soon transforms into the vast, untouched expanse of Kekexili, a nature reserve known for its rugged beauty and rare wildlife. The scenery here feels otherworldly, endless stretches of barren terrain under a wide, open sky. The train winds through a valley, weaves its way in a slow, deliberate zigzag. Eventually, it banks to the left, crossing over the mountains before emerging onto the expansive, elevated plains of the Tibetan Plateau. This is Golmud River, also known as Kunlun River. It originates from the northern slopes of Kunlun Mountains and drains into the Qinghai Basin. Historically and culturally, the Kunlun River ties into the broader mystique of the Kunlun Mountains, which are steeped in Chinese mythology as the abode of gods like the Queen Mother of the West. Practically speaking, it's a lifeline in an otherwise arid region, supporting Golmud City's water needs and some small-scale agriculture, though its flow weakens as it reaches the desert, often dissipating into the basin rather than connecting to a larger waterway. The river's surroundings are harsh high altitude, thin air, and a cold, arid climate dominate. Temperatures can swing wildly, and the water, while steady from snowmelt, isn't voluminous enough to make it a major river like the Yangtze or Yellow River, both of which also trace their sources to the broader Kunlun range. Still, it's a critical thread in the tapestry of the Qinghai-Tibet Plateau, linking the towering peaks to the lowland plains. This is the small settlement of Nachitai. There is a small railway station here as well, but this train will not stop here. The train glides across an unnamed bridge, revealing stunning vistas of the road stretching toward Lhasa. We are struck with awe at the sheer feat of infrastructure in this far-flung corner of the world, where human presence is sparse, yet the train races along at nearly 100 kilometers per hour. We have now almost crossed over the Kunlun mountain range, and the clouds cover seems to be slowly but steadily lifting. Time 10:10 a.m. Watch a jeep in the distance, waving to the train. We are now in the open plateau. We are starting to see convoys of heavy trucks far in the distance. We saw a larger number of trucks carrying cars both ways. Kekexili National Nature Reserve, also known as Hozil, is a breathtaking and remote wilderness area located on the Qinghai-Tibet Plateau in China, primarily in Qinghai Province, with parts extending into the Tibet Autonomous Region and Xinjiang, spanning about 45,000 square kilometers. It sits at an average elevation of 4,600 to 4,800 meters, making it one of the highest and largest nature reserves in the world. Established in 1995 and later upgraded to a national reserve in 1997, it was designated a UNESCO World Heritage Site in 2017. The landscape is a stunning mix of vast grasslands, rolling hills, and shimmering lakes, framed by the towering Kunlun and Tang mountain ranges. It's a volcanic region, dotted with late Cenozoic volcanic features like the Bingzham volcano, adding a rugged edge to its high-altitude plains. The climate is harsh, bitterly cold. Winters dip below -40 degrees Celsius, and even summers are brisk, with thin air due to the elevation. This isolation and severity have kept it largely uninhabited, earning it the nickname Forbidden Zone for human life. Kekexili is a sanctuary for wildlife, home to over 230 species of animals, including rare and endangered ones like the Tibetan antelope chiru, wild yak, Tibetan wild donkey kiang, snow leopard, and brown bear. The Tibetan antelope, in particular, is a symbol of the reserve. Its population, once nearly wiped out by poaching, has rebounded to around 60,000 thanks to strict protection efforts. The reserve also protects the headwaters of the Yangtze River, with rivers like the Chuma feeding into this vital system, alongside numerous endorheic lakes that dot the western reaches. The Qinghai-Tibet Railway and Highway 109 skirt its eastern edge, offering a glimpse of its beauty to travellers, like those on the train from Golmud to Lhasa, who might spot antelopes racing alongside or yaks grazing in the distance. Infrastructure like the Fenghuoshan Tunnel, the world's highest railway tunnel at 4,905 meters, showcases the engineering feats that make this remote area accessible. Yet the heart of Kekexili remains wild and untouched. Juanai Lake, a key gathering spot for migrating antelopes, is one of its ecological gems.
Hot, very hot in summer, and I won't say very cold, but yeah, it's cold. We get a few days of 1 and 2 degree Celsius.
Well, that's relatively cold, I'd say.
A few days.
Are you quite high up?
No.
Oh, okay.
We are 200 meters,
Oh, it's not that high.
but we are pretty close to the Himalayas.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No.
The green pastures. This is looking like Africa.
Right.
Yeah.
As you traverse the plateau, especially in regions like the Changtang or along the route from Golmud to Lhasa, the landscape reveals a patchwork of lush green pastures that thrive during the brief summer months when snowmelt and seasonal rains breathe life into the grasslands. These verdant stretches are fed by the plateau's unique hydrological system. Small streams and rivers trickle down from towering peaks, pulling into countless tiny lakes and ponds that shimmer under the intense, high-altitude sunlight. These bodies of water, often no larger than a football field, scatter across the plains like polished mirrors, reflecting the endless sky or the jagged silhouettes of distant mountains. The sky looms vast and impossibly blue, unmarred by pollution, with clouds casting fleeting shadows over the rolling terrain. The horizon stretches wide, interrupted by the plateau's gentle undulations or the stark rise of a snow-capped peak. At this altitude, the light is sharp and the air crisp, lending the scenery an almost surreal clarity, green pastures glowing against the earthy browns and greys, and water glinting like scattered jewels. Next, the train skirts the banks of the Tuo River, a key source of the Yangtze River, its waters weaving through the plateau's stark contours. As we just crossed the Tuo River, there is a small town called Tangalashan Town, often simply called Tangula Town. The town is being crossed on the opposite side of train, which I could not film, because the camera was mounted on the opposite side. The town's main settlement sits at about 4,535 meters above sea level, near where the Qinghai-Tibet Railway and China National Highway 109 cross the Tuo River, which is one of the headwaters of the Yangtze River. This strategic location makes it a key point along the Golmud to Lhasa corridor, though it's roughly 500 kilometers from Golmud's city center, connected only by this vital road and rail link. The population is small, with an estimated 1,900 people. We are approaching Yanshiping town. It is a small, high-altitude settlement perched on the Tibetan Plateau. Sitting at an elevation of 4,720 meters, it ranks among the highest year-round inhabited places on Earth, a testament to its rugged, remote setting along the Qinghai-Tibet Highway. It's surrounded by rolling, barren hills and vast, open terrain, with the distant Gula Mountains looming to the south. The ground here is more like a mosaic of gravelly plains, dry tundra, and wine-scoured rock. Small streams or seasonal rivulets might trickle through, fed by melting snow from the peaks, but permanent water bodies are scarce. Any moisture tends to collect in shallow depressions, forming tiny, ephemeral pools that glint under the harsh sunlight before evaporating in the dry air. This remote spot on the Tibetan Plateau lies within the vast wilderness of the Zhanjiang National Nature Reserve. This area lies roughly 200 kilometers southwest of Tanglashan town and about 150 kilometers west of Yanshiping. You're looking at an elevation likely between 4,800 and 5,000 meters, nestled in the northern reaches of the Tibetan Plateau, a subregion of the broader Tibetan Plateau. The landscape is framed by distant mountains. The Tang Gula range lies to the northeast, while the Kunlun Mountains arc far to the north. At this spot, though, the peaks are likely just faint silhouettes on the horizon, leaving the foreground dominated by open, windswept flatness. This location falls within the Zhanjiang region, which is Three Rivers source region, which protects the headwaters of the Yangtze, Yellow, and Mekong rivers. While no major river runs directly through this area, the area contributes to the plateau's hydrological network, with underground springs or minor tributaries possibly feeding into larger systems like the Chuma River to the north. Wildlife thrives despite the sparsity. Tibetan antelopes, wild yaks, and foxes roam these plains, while birds, like the black-necked crane, might pass through during migration. Human presence is negligible, making it a true wilderness within the reserve. No settlements or nomad camps are likely nearby. Its isolation is part of its character. In essence, this area offers a snapshot of the Tibetan Plateau at its most raw, barren yet beautiful, high-altitude desert of plains and distant peaks where nature reigns undisturbed. It is a place that feels timeless, shaped by altitude, weather, and the slow pulse of the wild. Since the operation of the Tibet Railway line, the ecological environment has changed, and the Qinghai-Tibet Plateau has not been affected. Currently, the protected areas along the railway line account for 41% of the total distance. From the Golmud to Lhasa section, the train's maximum speed is limited to 100 km per hour, while in the section from Xining to Golmud, the maximum allowed speed reaches 160 km per hour. Now, with these speed limits, the Qinghai-Tibet Railway has achieved another world record, as the fastest railway on a high plateau in the world, travelling at 100 km per hour on frozen ground, and also 120 km per hour on non-frozen ground. The scenic landscapes along the railway line are another attraction drawing tourists. We are nearing the Gula station. The Gula station, at 5,068 meters above sea level, is famous for being the highest railway station in the world, while the nearby Gula mountain pass is the most famous and highest point on the Qinghai-Tibet Railway line at 5,072 meters. This stretch of the journey crosses permafrost zones, and the railway itself is an engineering marvel, built with elevated tracks and tunnels to protect the fragile ecosystem. It's a landscape that feels untouched by time, a window into a world few get to see up close. It is a moment of raw natural splendor. It is silent, vast, and humbling as the train chugs steadily toward the spiritual heart of Tibet, Lhasa. It is surreal stillness and isolation, no trees, no towns, just the train winding through this high-altitude wilderness. The air outside is crisp and thin, and while the passengers cannot feel it from the pressurized cabins, the altitude might subtly affect the mood. Perhaps a sense of awe or tranquility. If the weather is clear ahead, the distant horizon might reveal more snow-capped ranges, like the Tang range closer to Lhasa. Some passengers, if not many, may feel a little uncomfortable at such high altitude. But we are very lucky as we did not feel a thing till now. We acclimatized for 2 days and 3 nights at Xining, which sits at 2,200 meters elevation. From Xining, we traveled to Qinghai Lake and Choco Lake. Both of them are below the dizzying heights of Gula station, but they set the stage for this high-altitude journey. We are now in Amdo County. Its capital is Amdo Town, north of Lhasa. Cona Lake lies to the southwest of the town of Amdo, which we will be reaching soon. As the train rolls southward along the Qinghai-Tibet Railway, Cona Lake, also known as Cona Lake, comes into view, typically visible on the right side of the train. At this elevation, it is one of the highest freshwater lakes in the world. Its expansive, shimmering surface stretching over 300 square kilometers is framed by the vast, open landscape of the Tibetan Plateau. The water, whether it's a brilliant blue or a moody grey, creates a mirror-like effect that is especially striking against the barren, high-altitude surroundings. We are again seeing green pastures of Tibetan highlands. In the distance you can spot a rare Tibetan house, most likely of an Tibetan nomadic Drupka. You can see herds of yak feeding on these grasslands, which is covered in a thin carpet of hardy alpine grasses and low shrubs. The window frames a scene that feels like it's been lifted straight from a dream or a desktop wallpaper. Stretching out before you is a vast, almost impossibly perfect grassland. Dotting this surreal expanse are herds of yaks and sheep, feeling like a movie scene. In the distance, rolling hills rise gently, their slopes smooth and unblemished, as if brushed onto the horizon by an artist's hand. The hills frame the scene, cradling the grassland in a way that feels both vast and intimate, like nature's own amphitheatre. It's 7 p.m. on September 29th, and the sun is sinking fast over the Tibetan Plateau, casting a fleeting and almost impossible beauty over the landscape. We are nearing a police checkpost which is for the vehicular traffic looking to enter the larger Lhasa region. By now, the train is descending from the lofty heights of the Tibetan Plateau, down from the 4,500-metre elevations toward Lhasa's more manageable 3,650 metres. The landscape itself softens as you near the Lhasa River Valley. The grasslands become patchier, interspersed with fields of barley or vegetables. The valley glints in the fading light, perhaps catching the last golden hues of the setting sun, framed by rugged mountains that loom closer now. Their rocky faces are showing a dramatic backdrop.
Welcome to Lhasa.